Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another night of iRacing action here on the National Racing Network. Tonight, we've got the Indy Pro 2000 cars here at Virginia International Raceway. Looks like a very, very foggy day these drivers are going to be dealing with. My name is Patrick Byrne. Joining me in the booth tonight is going to be James Watson. Christopher taking the night off. He is down in North Carolina shooting Dale Jr.'s shootout going on with legend cars in the streets of Charlotte for the NASCAR All-Star Weekend. That is supposed to be an absolutely awesome show. But tonight we've got pretend race cars on your screen, and while not as cool as legend cars on the streets of Charlotte, not quite Chicago down there, this track does put on a great show. What do you think, James?
Yeah, and I believe this is one of the shorter layouts, right? I think this is good. The first time we've ever gone to one of the shorter layouts.
I believe it might be one of the shorter layouts. We'll have to see what some of the lap times these drivers set here. Did not do a whole ton of prep work for this one, so I thought we were on the large Grand Circuit, but possibly looks like we might be running the North or South Circuit here tonight. And it does look like we're running the North Course, so one of the club circuits here. It's a track that I am a bit unfamiliar with. I've never really run any of the alternate layouts of VIR, except for like just screwing around in some street stocks or something, running around bashing into each other. So you watch along with Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, the law firm, going around trying to get the pole time. Currently the first driver out on track. And with a full grid tonight, this race did not split. We have 22 drivers registered for this race. 20 drivers are currently in the session. This track is going to get cramped pretty quick running the shorter version of VIR.
Yeah, it really is. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because you're not going to have a whole lot of room to think. So this might be pretty sketchy. Yep.
Law firm finishing up his out lap, taking his first timed lap here. Using every possible inch of the racing circuit. See if we can't get an onboard look with this car. You can see just how hilly this track is. I mean, there's so many drastic elevation changes. You can't see the apex in the next corner when you're going through most of these. Up the front straightaway, this will be the end of his first time lap. Currently, Brian Labarge, quick time. See where Hazelworth puts himself. Hazelworth puts himself right to the top of the charts. That is going to be a 1 minute 17:057. Currently, Brian Labarge 7 full tenths of a second behind Hazelworth. This might be a race for second place, or the way these times are coming in, it might be a race for third. Hazelworth is in a league of his own. Brian Labarge is in Double-A right behind him. And then you've got your, like, high school level players all sitting behind him, jockeying around for the third position. Adam Hackman, currently your third quick time. Over a second behind Hazelworth and about half a second behind Labarge.
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting, is that we don't have the top two in the championship. So this race might just be like completely wide open.
Yeah, and I've got some bad news for all you Ted Burns fans out there. I met up with him this past weekend at Mid-Ohio, and, well, he won the race on Saturday, finished second in the race on Sunday. He did let me know he's not going to make the remainder of the races on the iRacing calendar. The real world racing is just a little bit too important, and I can't blame him, but it sucks to see your championship leader have to bow out of the championship when he was doing so well.
And second place in the championship, too, with Sam Carasala missing because of work.
Yeah, Sam Carasala not able to make the race tonight. Had to stay late at work, unfortunately. So we ride along with the Philadelphia Flyers colors of Arad Eskew. I don't know why I'm giving the Flyers so much screen time, but I'm in a good mood, so we'll let them have it. Up the front straightaway, taking his final timed lap, currently in the 3rd position. Let's see if he can improve and close the gap to less than a second. Second lap does go quicker, does not improve his position though. Second lap was a 1:17.625. Jason Miller moves himself up to the 4th position. Sebastian Trejo finishing up his second lap, or maybe not going to complete the second lap. Riding along with the number 8 machine, see where Jacob can put himself coming across the line. Does know better. That last lap was a 1:21.470. His best lap was a 1:18.909. So going to be safely in the 12th position. 2 minutes remain left in qualifying. Ivan Pangrazio is the only car left taking his timed lap. A little bit squirrely through some of these S's. Cutting up through the shortcut. This is one of my favorite turns to drive in the street stocks. The car just gets so light. You saw it right there. A little bit of opposite lock trying to keep the car in a straight line. In the street stocks, you are full lock, swinging the back end of those things way sideways. But back now onto the main circuit.
The inner portions of this track are really interesting, you know. I love a lot of these corners. Like, you're not used to it because you don't really run a lot of the shorter layouts a lot on iRacing, but when you do, you're treated to such an eclectic group of corners.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite thing about like the older Gran Turismo games or the older Forza Motorsports is when you would run some of the club style cars or some of the slower cars, your hot hatches and stuff, you would go to Silverstone, you would go to VIR, and you would go to some of the big famous World Championship tracks, but you would run the national layout or the club layout, and there's a lot of really interesting, fun corners that you just don't get to experience in the big cars, and frankly, some of the weird track layouts are not fun in the big cars. They make too much power to really string the corners together, and in a set of turns that's based on keeping your momentum up, they make so much power where if you screw one section of it up, you can just slam right on the gas and you didn't really lose any time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Last lap for Ivan Pangrazio was a 1:24.217, currently putting him in the 20th position. However, there was a 1X, so it did not score. Looks like this next lap will be his second time lap. See if this one will score. Oh, big moment there. Able to keep it between the white lines. Coming up the final straightaway and decides to pull off for the checkered flag. Does not take a time, so he will be 20th on the grid tonight. So looks like it will be a full pace lap for these drivers.
Which, you know, isn't that bad at this layout. If it was the full layout of VIR, yeah, we'd be here for an eternity.
Oh, yeah. So if the software would cooperate, I can give you the starting lineup. On the pole tonight is going to be Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. You see his car on the right side, the right lane, farthest away from the screen. Weird about some of these road courses. If turn 1 is a right-hand turn, the inside line is typically is what would be the outside line on some of the ovals. 2 is outside, though, is going to be Brian Labarge in the number 6 machine. Row number 2 has Rod Eskew on the inside, and Jason Miller starting side by side with him in the number 5 car. 5th position is going to be Adam Hackman, and to his outside is going to be Mark Albano. Row number 4 has Sebastian Trejo in the number 18 machine, starting in the 7th position. To his outside will be Riley Feeney in the number 9 car. Rounding out your top 10 will be Richard Matthews on the inside and Mike Holler on the outside. Mike Holler starting halfway through this field. Expect him to move his way up. I think we could see a top 5 finish out of that number 4 machine tonight. Row number 6 will have Tyler Stover on the right side and Jacob Rufflot on the left side. Jason Paydu starting in the 13th position. Brandon Volker starting 14th in the number 14 car. Ty Brody going to be in the 15th position. Ben J. Vernette in the number 17 car starting 16th. Carl G. out of my home of Long Island, New York in that number 11 machine going to be starting in the 17th position. Taylor Daniels starting 18th tonight. Row number 10 will have Sebastian Deschambault in the number 19 position. To his outside will be Ivan Pangrazio. We got to watch his lap time. Robert Presley and Mauricio Silva starting 21st and 22nd. Not sure if they made the grid here tonight. Did not see them turn a lap here in qualifying. Hazelworth aggressively warming up the tires, following right behind this iRacing safety car. Even getting side by side with it in some of these S's. Does he know the race doesn't start for another, about a minute or so?
Who cares? It's just details. He's definitely going to need all the heat he can get into those tires, so it's going to be a rough couple corners until everything gets up to temp.
Pace car comes off the circuit. The field is in the hands of Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, going up the very, very long, steep hill. And on the power very early, Hazelworth gets out to a large jump over Brian Labarge. Side by side for the 3rd position go Rod Eskew and Jason Miller. Taking a dive into turn 1. No carnage that I could see from the back. Hazelworth already running away with it. We'll take an eye on the battle for 3rd as Miller is still trying to get by Rod Eskew. Whole field single file. That is such a great shot watching them switch back. Right, left, right, left. Down the downhill now, re-entering the main part of the circuit. And another sweeping right-hander into a downhill left-hander. I mean, this track is just picturesque. I want to get down to this track someday. I think this would be a really fun place to go. It almost seems like it would have vibes like Mid-Ohio or Lime Rock, where it's just one big park that they kind of built a racetrack inside of.
Right? Like, the scenery around this place is underrated. Like, it just feels, like you said, it feels like a park that they're kind of starting to cut through. Rest in peace, Oak Tree.
Yeah, unfortunately, Oak Tree fell over. Oak Tree is no more. However, they saved some branches over it, sprouted up Son of Oak Tree just outside the circuit, so not being grown in the same location as the original Oak Tree, probably for the safety and well-being of some of the drivers out on the racing circuit. probably not a good idea to have a tree that you can just kind of crash into at any point. Hazelworth getting away to an almost 2-second gap over Brian Labarge. Rod Eskew trailing about a second behind Brian Labarge as well. So really the whole field kind of spread out. This almost reminds me of an F1 race. Everyone kind of running their own pace, doing what they have to do, and not a whole ton of action going on just yet. But we know very well in these Indy Pro 2000 races that anything can happen. Somebody can find something, get a burst of speed, and all of a sudden they're running away with it. Fortunately, I think commentator cursed Michael Holler a little bit. He started in the 10th position tonight. He's worked his way down to the 15th position. I said he would make it up the 5th, and he's done quite the opposite. So, wondering if maybe there was a mechanical issue, technical issue, something going on there with that car that caused him to drop back. He's going to be a fun one to watch try and make his way up through the field, though. Currently,
still not the worst commentator's curse you've done in the last week.
No, that is for sure. Battle going on for the 10th position between Tyler Stover and the number 15 car. You see those green and white colors on that machine. Followed by the 8 of Jacob Bruflant. Right there, the black and red car you see. They were jostling for position before. Tyler Stover seems to have gotten the best of it and is starting to run away now from Jacob. Closest battle on the circuit is going to be for the 7th position. So we watch Mark Albano following behind Riley Feeney by about half a second, and Sebastian Trejo behind him by about half a second. Richard Matthews in the 8th position, that number 18 car at the tail of this line, getting a huge draft, trying to see if he can get something done on the cars in front of him. New fastest lap once again by Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. That was a 1:17.263, so he is not making it easy for Brian Labarge here, and has already pulled away to a gap of over 3 seconds. Already working lap number 4. These laps ticking by very quickly here tonight. Running only half of the length of the normal Virginia International Raceway.
I'd say more about 2/3 maybe. Something to that effect.
Yeah, maybe. They do cut around on the inside a little bit. See a battle here. The 18 car of Sebastian Trejo does get around Mark Albano. Almost effortlessly. That was a textbook pass. As Hazelworth once again going fastest lap. 1:17, 1:58. Why don't we ride along with Brian Labarge here? See if you can even see Hazelworth in front of him. And you can see him just a little blip at the front of the screen there. Almost 2 full corners ahead. So we move over to Jason Miller. A little bit more action going on here as he's closed the gap almost completely on Rod Eskew. That gap down to about half a second. Naiji Camargo checking in. Too tired to race today, but good luck, Brian. And Brian has given it his best shot. Currently in second place, and unfortunately, I don't think he has anything for Hazelworth. But that's nothing to feel bad about. No one else in this field has anything for Hazelworth tonight. It is a race for second place, and for second place, Brian Labarge is absolutely dominating it so far. Gap almost up to 2 seconds over Rod Eskew in third position.
Definitely a good battle for the final step on the podium between Rod and Jason Miller.
Yeah, a little bit of a misstep there from Miller. As once again, Hazelworth sets the fastest lap, almost breaking into the 16s, not just quite that time. But yeah, a little bit of a mess up there from Miller, getting into the dirt a little bit, but it doesn't seem to have hurt him that bad. Gap currently at 3/4 of a second. Still plenty of time, 14 laps left in this race to close that gap and get by that Philadelphia Flyers car for Odescu. And this train of cars ends with the number 2 machine of Richard Matthews. We'll go ahead and look at the number 7 car of Mark Albano. You can just see these guys weaving their way in and out. They're all single file. This track seems like it's very hard to get a pass made.
It really is, especially this layout, because you don't have the big run out from Oak Tree down into Roller Coaster to help you out, so you've kind of got to make do with what little opportunities you get.
And Hazelworth finally breaks into the 16s. That last lap for him is going to be a 1:16.911. A just blistering pace out of him. Last lap for Brian Labarge was a 17.838. Best lap for Brian Labarge, who is second best in the field. 1:17.493. So best lap between first and second place is half a second a lap. And that is how Hazelworth is pulling away so quickly from Brian Labarge and the rest of the field. See a little bit of a bobble there for Riley Feeney in the 9 car. We'll hop along with Sebastian Trejo following just behind. See if Trejo can get another textbook pass made here and get by Riley and start. Oh! Maybe right there. Huge tank slapper for the 9 car just in front. This field's starting to make their way what seems to be in some lap traffic. And huge lockup there for Jason Miller. Or excuse me, that was Brian Labarge with a big lockup trying to get by the lap car. That's the number 21 machine of Mauricio Silva. And that allowed Rod Eskew to close the gap under 2 seconds. And with that lap car in between, that might give Eskew enough of a draft to kind of close the gap completely and catch up to Brian Labarge. Just depends on where he has to get the pass done. Down the straightaway is a good place to do it, but he has to worry about Jason Miller just 0.2 of a second behind now. As Miller with the huge tank slapper.
Yeah.
And you can see just how far ahead Hazelworth is from the rest of this field.
Yeah, Law Firm's just cruising away.
One thing to note for Hazelworth, last lap was over 1 minute and 18 seconds, so 2 seconds slower than his best lap just by getting caught up with the one lapped car of Mauricio Silva. I mean, this track just seems so difficult to pass that your fastest car in the field lost 2 seconds trying to get by one of the slowest cars in the field.
Yeah, and look how long it took everyone else to get by, too. Like, that's the only solace you have as the race leader is, you know, the rest of them are going to be struggling just as much.
Yeah, but compared to his best lap time, Brian Labarge only lost 3 or 4 tenths, even with that huge lockup. As Eskew's close enough to make a dive happen now, he's just going to hold out and wait as we approach the halfway point in the race. Mike Holler making his way back up to the 11th position. So a 10th position, top 10 finish is not out of reach for Mike Holler. After what seemed like an issue happening at the start of the race, clawing his way back up through the field. As the field makes their way past some more lap traffic, that is going to be the number 22 machine of Sylvain Deschambault. I'm probably butchering that name, but giving it our best shot here in the booth. As all this battling between Rod Eskew and Jason Miller has allowed Brian Labarge to put a gap of over 2 seconds over the rest of this pack. Jason Miller seems like he's having a little bit of connection trouble, and Sebastian Trejo able to claw his way around in that number 18 machine. So even though he's ranked as the 18th best driver in this field, I feel like we're going to see Trejo climbing the ranks very quickly here if he's able to put up punches like that.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge iRating gain for him if he can hold on to it.
This is almost like what we saw happen with Carter Lundy. I mean, when Carter first started racing these cars, he was what, the 20 car, barely making top split, and it was just like something clicked overnight, and all of a sudden couldn't help but watch him win every single week. Almost wonder if we're seeing the same trajectory with Sebastian Trejo. So I almost wonder if there's an issue at Jason Miller's machine. Riley Feeney going side by side in the turn number 1. Going to try and take the long way around, maybe not. Goes for the crossover. But Jason Miller able to defend the inside, and Feeney's not quite able to get around just yet.
Yeah, like I don't know what it could be, because you're not gonna burn the tires off to start losing that much, and the only thing I can figure is maybe he's having to emergency fuel save, but even then, it's just weird.
Emergency fuel saver, one of the oddities of sim racing is you're racing at home. You're not in an actual race car by yourself on the track. There are plenty of distractions. I don't know if he has kids. Maybe he has one of his kids nagging him to his right. Maybe he has a dog that's now climbed halfway between him and his pedals. And having the fight with those kind of exterior issues that you just don't get in the real world can be really distracting and very easily cause you to lose positions or, at the very most, lose the race. I mean, we remember during COVID, Denny Hamlin's daughter playing with the TV remote during one of the Pro Invitational races shut the TV off while Denny Hamlin was leading.
Yep, the iconic uh-oh. She realized her grave mistake.
Feeney almost getting into the gearbox of Jason Miller's number 5 car. Currently, this is your closest battle on track. Not a whole lot of action going on throughout the rest of the field. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth currently running away from the field, over 8 seconds a gap to Brian Labarge. Brian Labarge also safely in the second position, with a 2.5 second gap to Rod Eskew just behind him. Rod Eskew running third the entirety of the race. Sebastian Trejo making his way up to the 4th position so far, with about a half a second gap to Jason Miller. Now, the closest battle in the field is going to be to Riley Feeney just behind him, trailing about 0.3 of a second as they make their way onto the front straightaway. Grabbing a little bit of grass there does the 9 car. Then you have to go almost 10 seconds back all the way to the number 15 machine of Tyler Stover, just now entering the front straightaway. Adam Hackman just behind in that yellow number 12 machine, going to be running 8th so far. Mark Albano running in the 9th position in that number 7 machine. And here we go, Mike Holler making his way up to the 10th position. Finally, and now working around lap traffic of Mauricio Silva. Very clean pass in the turn number 1. That is going to be your top 10 rundown here. And we haven't given him a lot of love because, frankly, he's run away from the race. But we'll give some light on to Alexander Wesley Hazelworth's number 1 machine as he works his way through some more lap traffic, goes to take a look around the outside, and is going to get it here, re-entering the main circuit. So So with Ted Burns out of the championship picture now, do you think Hazelworth is going to come and basically run away with the championship? I mean, Karasala unfortunately missing tonight. Do you think there's enough left in the season for Karasala to come back and take the spot from Ted and hold off Hazelworth?
I mean, I still feel like Ted still has a great opportunity to win it if he's able to show up next week, because he's at 8 weeks counted, right?
I believe so. So he would only need to show up 2 more times.
Well, no, he's got the 8 weeks counted that he needed.
I am not sure, because I know he missed a race or 2 earlier in the season. I was joking with him at Mid-Ohio that he should do the Max Verstappen, get an Xbox controller and a laptop, and just go run and turn laps, even finish 9th, 10th, just to get points on the board, because I'd rather score 10 points than no points.
True.
But as Hazelworth crossed the line here, only going to be 5 laps to go here at Virginia International Raceway. We'll take a look. Trejo getting really close to the rear bumper now of Rod Eskew, once again trying to get by. Right as we take the camera off him, though, Hazelworth goes fastest lap once again with a 1:16.793. There's just no way he's finding that much more speed than the rest of the field, is there?
Clearly he is.
Miller and Feeney still fighting very hard. Gap between those 2 cars currently at about 0.4 of a second. We'll move the battle back up to the battle for 3rd position between Rod Eskew and Sebastian Trejo, as they seem to have closed the gap on Brian Labarge, wondering if there was an issue or something for Brian Labarge's car. Gap separating them only 1 second. Brian Labarge having a great night so far. Qualified in the 2nd position, and that is still where he sits. But losing time, I don't want to say rapidly, but at an accelerated pace to Rod Eskew. Gap sitting consistently at about a second here. See what it is across the line, and we'll look at it the next lap. So gap across the line for Brian Labarge is, we'll call it 1 full second. It was like 0.99. See how much Eskew can close the gap on Brian Labarge here over lap number 16. Down through the S's, and there is lap traffic ahead to be worried about. Is that going to give Eskew basically a freebie? Kind of huge dive for the lead. Ooh, big off for Brian Labarge. That might be it.
No.
They're going to be side by side through the S's, and Eskew is able to take the top spot. Brian Labarge falls back to 3rd, and he's going to have to fight with Trejo now.
Oh, it's such a frustrating mistake for Brian Labarge. You know, he's kicking himself for that.
Yeah, he needs to get out of his head, focus on the race to come. There's still 4 more laps remaining. He's got the faster car than Eskew. So as long as he can stay on the ball, he's still close enough where he can make a move happen and get 2nd place. As huge dive there for Riley Feeney in the number 9 car. Almost getting it a long way around turn number 1, but not quite able to make anything happen there. Rod Eskew starting to run away from Brian Labarge a little bit. Gap up to about 3/4 of a second. Now on the flip side for Labarge, Eskew is going to be the first one going around the lap car. As you see the battle behind heating up between Riley Feeney and Jason Miller for the 5th position. And Feeney is able to get around. Feeney's going to put himself in the 5th position. Does Jason Miller have any fight left to get by him? And, oh, this is not what Brian Labarge wanted to see, or maybe it is. Going to have to go side by side for the pass in the turn number 1. Does the lap car check up early? No, they don't. They're going to sacrifice Escu's entry, but Brian Labarge's entry was sacrificed too, having to fight side by side with Trejo. Still going to stay in front exiting turn number 1. We'll just ignore the lap car completely driving off the circuit. Looks like they got back on just fine. As, oh, another lap car slows down Escu, and Trejo's going to go for the blue light special. Escu able to block off that inside line. Going to be side by side now. Ooh, barely. Sebastian Trejo gets himself up into the second position, or third position. Brian Labarge, after starting on the second spot, going to fall back outside of the podium now.
Man.
And goes wide once again. Riley Feeney is going to get by. That puts Brian Labarge into the 5th position, and Jason Miller is going to be the next car. Hazelworth once again with the fastest lap of the race. With a 1 minute 16.707, he's just rubbing it in at this point. Gap to second up to 15 seconds. Just possibly the most dominating performance we've seen in a while here in the Indy Pro 2000 series. Sebastian Trejo still trying his hardest to close the gap on Rod Escu and take away the second position. As Hazelworth going purple in Sector 3 once again. It's going to be close. He has the draft coming across the line. Will he set fastest lap as he takes the white flag? Oh, not quite. Last lap for Hazelworth was a 1:17.619. It was his fastest Sector 3, but lost a little bit trying to get around the lap car in Sector number 2. As Trejo and Escu going side by side here on the white flag. Trejo's going to go around the high side, see if he can get some momentum into the next right-hander. Shows how well I know the circuit. The next turn was a left-hand corner, so definitely the advantage there for Rod Escu. Riley Feeney trying to break into the podium as well. Escu fighting his hardest to stay in the second position. They are going to be side by side now. Up the hill into the S's. Still going to be side by side. Feeney could come out on top if these two cars make contact. Oh, big slide there for Trejo. Feeney's going to come along and steal the second position. Hazelworth going to come home in first. Rod Escu safely in second now, and the battle is for third. Hazelworth not quite across the line yet. And there it is. Hazelworth going to be your winner. Escu second. Feeney comes home in third. Trejo fourth. Brian Labarge in fifth. Jason Miller across the line sixth. Mark Albano coming along way behind the rest of the field. 12 seconds, in fact, in the seventh position. Tyler Stover eighth. Mike Holler makes his way up to the 9th position, so still higher than he qualified. Adam Hackman finishing in the 10th position. 11th up the hill now is going to be Jason Padu. Brandon Volker coming in the 12th position. 13th is going to be Richard Matthews. 14th, Ivan Pangrazio, starting in the 20th position tonight, makes his way up to the 14th position. Still a long way to go around the circuit before it's official, but a great night, up 6 spots from where he started. So we'll wait for the rest of the field to go and finish their laps. And then we'll get you the final running order.
I tell you, this was a really interesting race we had tonight.
Yeah, it definitely put on a show. Hazelworth running away with it. It was definitely the Hazelworth show all night, and we didn't show a whole ton of his car because, frankly, he wasn't racing anyone. He was in a league of his own out there, setting time trial lap after time trial lap. The race was for the second position. Brian Labarge leading 18 laps. Unfortunately, it all unraveled with just 2 to go. Rod Eskew able to get himself up to the second position. Riley Feeney stealing third from Sebastian Trejo in the final set of quarters. So there is your top 10 on the board. Hazelworth, Eskew, Feeney for second and third, taking over your podium. Outside of the podium, it's going to be Sebastian Trejo in the 4th position in the number 18 machine, one of the lowest ranked cars in the field. I don't think he's going to be one of the lowest ranked for long. I think we're going to see him stick around, and think we'll be talking to him these next couple weeks. Brian Labarge recovering a little bit, doing a bit of damage control, only falls back to the 5th position, so still not a terrible night, but not as good as it could have been. Jason Miller finishes in the 6th position. Mark Albanio finishing at 7th. Tyler Stover 8th. Holler 9th. And Adam Hackman 10th. Breaking out of the top 10 now, it's going to be Jason Padu finishing 11th. Brandon Volker 12th. Richard Matthews finishing in the 13th position. Ivan Pangrazio finishing 14th. Ty Brody 15th. Benjay Vernette 16th. Sylvain Deschambeau in the 17th position. Mauricio Silva 18th. Tyler Daniels 19th. And Jacob Bruflet in the 20th position. Robert Presley running just 4 laps tonight, finishing in the 21st position. And Carl G., unfortunately not starting the race, going to come home in the 22nd position.
It's a shame about Carl. I really wanted to see how he was going to do.
Yeah, I think he just gets into his head too much. He sees the full grid of cars. Worries about ruining the leaders' races. And, man, if I got any word of advice, just go out there and run it. The only way you get good enough to run with those guys is you get comfortable racing around them. Even if you're getting comfortable with them lapping you, that's every bit more experience you need to one day be up there fighting for wins with them. But we will bring in second place finisher Rod Eskew. Rod, it was definitely a race for second here tonight. It didn't seem like anyone in the field had anything for Hazelworth. I mean, he finished 18 seconds ahead of basically the Prototype 2 class tonight. But you stole that one from Brian Labarge. He had a little bit of hiccups going through the race. Were you worried when he had that tank slap where he was going to come into you?
Not really. I saw that Brian was a little bit faster. I think I was a little bit more consistent. We were going back and forth the whole time. I told him kind of after the race, that was the hardest I've had to work in a while. I had a group of 3 or 4 right behind me that was kind of keeping me on the edge the whole time, having to avoid making mistakes. So it was just a war of attrition, and that's kind of how it turned out.
Hell yeah, both of you fighting just about as hard as I've ever seen anyone fight for the second position. I mean, it just seemed like you were closing the gap, reeling him in, playing the Jaws theme, and all of a sudden just pushing the car too hard, he got a little bit loose. I remember him saying in the pre-race how he felt like every single lap here he was just pushing himself over the limit, and unfortunately it bit him right at the end of it.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple corners on my end too that if you messed up, you lost your whole flow for kind of the whole lap, and I was just trying to minimize that the whole time. I had a couple of really fast guys behind me, like I said, and they were just kind of keeping me on edge.
Yeah, a lot of the fun of the North Circuit of VIR is the fact that it's completely a flow track. Your only break is down that front straightaway. It's all rhythm out of turn number 1 all the way back up to Oak Tree. Would you say you agree with that, Rod?
Definitely. I was on edge the whole time. I'm normally pretty gentle on my tires, but my front left was kind of killing me, especially coming out of that last turn, the last 1 or 2 laps.
Oh, man. Well, you put on a fantastic show tonight. Definitely earned the second place finish here. Got any sponsor plugs, thank yous you want to thank here tonight?
I'm using the Watson setup, which is very helpful, and livery. Thank you to Brian Labarge again for the Flyers livery. That's all I got.
Well, shame you're a Flyers fan, but I'll give it to you. You finished second here tonight, and hopefully we're talking to you again soon.
Hopefully. Thanks.
And finally, it is time for race winner. It is the law firm, Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, absolutely putting the show on here tonight. Up in Cleveland, we have Tim Misney, his law firm. He'll make you feel the pain, and you brought it here tonight. 18 seconds ahead of Rod Eskew in second place. I mean, you got nitrous under the hood of that thing or something, man?
Thank you. I didn't know I was 18 seconds. I was just putting in laps of thing, getting afraid of crashing into any of the blue flags, but thankfully a lot of them moved out of the way.
Yeah, we saw earlier in the race, in the first 3 or 4 laps, you brought the gap over 4 seconds to Brian Labarge, and all of a sudden lap traffic started becoming an issue, and you dropped back down to about 2 seconds, and as soon as the rest of the field started making their way through lap traffic, you just pulled away like you had a rocket ship or something behind you.
Yeah, I try to get as much of the gap because if I'm out by myself, I just start thinking of anything and just lose focus. So if I get a gap, then that gives me a little breathing room.
So, what are your thoughts coming into kind of the closing stage of the championship? Ted Burns not going to be running another race this season. Sam Carasala having the miss tonight. What do you think your chances of winning this thing?
I actually think it's pretty good. I'm kind of surprised I'm still close in the points considering how many races it basically crashed out. But I think next race, I think I should be pretty strong if I remember what the next track is. I mean, I think it's like New Hampshire. I don't know. That was in a different car. I have no idea if I'm any good at it for the next race in this car.
Well, I think you're definitely a strong contender. Always putting on a show, if not in the top 3, definitely in the top 5. And we see you sometimes outside of the strength of field races, so it's not just these ones you run. So if you have a bad night on the TV, you still have enough to recover on other nights. Definitely going to be one to watch going into the season finale.
Yeah, thank you.
But why don't we get all your sponsor plugs, thank yous, shout outs, whatever you want to do, man. It's all yours.
Thank you for the broadcast. Thank you, Team Watson Racing Setup for the setup this week, and thank you, Blue Flags, again for not crashing.
Oh man, that is, I think, my new favorite insult. Not gonna call them squirrels. Not gonna call them anything else. You're a blue flag. I think I need to get that sticker on the back of my car. But it's a pleasure talking to you as always, and hopefully we're speaking again next week.
Yeah, hope you do. Thank you.
What a fantastic showing here tonight. I mean, just a dominant performance here. I don't think I've seen something like that happen at one of these road courses in a long while. I mean, Ted Burns at Long Beach comes to mind, but nothing where there was no competition for first place.
Yeah, we typically don't have beatdowns like that. That's crazy. Yeah, the law firm was able to just, have a Sunday drive out there, but thankfully we had a lot of crazy battles for P2 and on to help us kind of keep an eye out through the race.
Hell yeah. Well, that's going to be all here for tonight's show, Thursday night show at least. Next week, we've got a bunch more racing coming at you. Chris will be back heading the controls of the National Racing Network machine. This weekend, it is the greatest weekend in all of motorsports, and it is the greatest Sunday in all of motorsports. Happens once every couple years. Monaco is going to be in the morning on Sunday, 9 o'clock sharp, Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you get up early, have your breakfast, with some Formula One racing. For lunch, you have the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. And then when that concludes, as long as we don't get a rain delay, you have the longest race in NASCAR. It's the Coke 600 for dinner. And for dessert, unfortunately there isn't a fourth race, but I'm sure you can catch some dirt track action going on somewhere in the country. But it's important to not forget what this weekend is all about. Memorial Day weekend is a time we remember all of those who gave their lives fighting for our freedom. So don't forget that while you're enjoying the greatest weekend to have as a race fan. Thank you very much. My name was Patrick Byrne. It still is. James Watson was in the booth with me tonight, and we'll be talking to you next time. Thank you very much.